Hey there, we are back again, Michelle and I, to talk about internal and external branding. And we thought we would kick it off by introducing each other. So, Michelle, you want to go first?
Yeah. Hi, Joe. Welcome. I'm so excited to join Joe again. My name is Michelle Mendoza. I'm a founder, I'm a founding member of Connect to HR, and I'm really excited to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Joe, Dr. Joe, as we affectionately call her, Dr. Joe Ilfeld. She's the founder of Insight to Leadership, and she works alongside executive leaders and senior leadership teams to make sure that they focus their energy and time where it matters most. She often jokes that she's like the workplace therapist. Um, and her big thing is to help high performing leaders see the patterns that might be in showing up as obstacles that are in their way. And I think what I especially love about Joe is that she blends real world leadership experience with insights and research, having come from that PhD math data background. And she connects perfectly today with our conversation because we're going to talk about brand and visibility. So thank you, Joe, for inviting me to come back.
Awesome. And now I get the honor of introducing you as well. So, Michelle Mendoza is both, as you know, founder of Connect to HR, but also really, really a dear friend and colleague, and someone who I've been working closely with for 10 years now, bouncing ideas off each other and, talking about what we're seeing in the workplace and in the work marketplace and what really works. So she's the founder of Connect to HR. She's a certified career coach and an HR advisor who is amazing at helping professionals navigate career change. And I know her clients repeatedly mention that they have more clarity and confidence after working with her. And what I really love personally about Michelle is just her deep strategic experience and that approach that comes across, whether it's corporate, nonprofit, advisory roles. She's great at supporting leaders and clarifying directions and positioning themselves with confidence and partnering with organizations to move beyond sort of the compliance checklist that we might think about with HR or band-aids, and really thinking about what are functional HR strategies that will really support the business. So we did a LinkedIn Live, um, I don't know, a few months ago. And
Mhm.
what people seem to really resonate with it is, how do you develop your brand? And so we thought we would come back and dive much more deeply into how you develop your brand for success. So, just a few things. We are going to use a three pillar framework to talk about internal and external visibility. We're going to talk about having a digital presence, which, hey, we are here having a digital presence. So we're thinking about it for our own worlds too. And then we're going to talk about networking, right? We're doing this together as colleagues, as friends. We are relying on our network. And so we want to bring that to you. And, really, one of the core messages we're going to talk about today is how part of branding is really thinking about, what do you want to be known for? what
Mhm.
what's going to matter in your world, in your industry, in your org, and what is sort of unique to you? What makes you you? What are the strengths and superpowers that you want people to consistently see you and recognize you for? And we want to make sure that we have some actionable advice. So we have some questions for you to reflect on. We're going to throw them up on the screen. So, if you're seeing this later, you can rewind back and look for those questions. But we're also going to just be really talking about things that we have seen our clients do successfully, and what really works in today's marketplace. So um, we thought we would throw up sort of, that sounded really weird. We thought we would put up the core question, really of the day. It's just like, what do you want to be known for? And we'll probably talk about this and come back to it later, but keep this in mind. Like, this is sort of one of these core things. Like, it's hard to have a brand, both internally and externally, if you haven't thought about what you want to be known for. Okay. So I'm going to throw it over to Michelle to, just sort of give us a primer, like, why does professional branding matter? You do a lot of work with career people in transition in their careers. Give us some insights there.
Yeah, I think, and this is such a great topic starting in January, right? As we all are thinking about goals and what do we want beyond goals, do we want our intention to really be in 2026, right? So that question about what do we want to be known for is really key. I think from an HR perspective, um, whether we like it or not, we have a brand, right? So we could either decide to define it ourselves or someone else will define it for us, right? And so why it's important to be intentional is that help a brand who you are, who you want to be known for, really helps others, right, advocate for you, for example, when you're not in the room. So that could show up in right now. Again, a lot of people are talking about performance reviews, right? It's a big
And
performance review time
ratings
period, and
and
ratings
their
and
ratings.
promotions, right? So ratings, promotions, even if you're not up for a promotion this year, maybe potentially down the road, who are high potentials. So again, I think having that clear brand that you can articulate to others about the value that you bring to an organization and who you are when you're not in the room, but those key decision makers are talking about you, right? And your name is brought up, there's going to be some clarity. So it's not self promotion, it's just being very clear about who you are and how you show up and the value you bring.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so helpful because I find like these are sort of two of the biggest myths that people have, in their careers. The first is like, okay, if I do good, hard work, people will recognize it. It's like,
Mm,
maybe somewhat, they'll appreciate it for sure, but will it get recognized in terms of like performance reviews, in terms of bonuses, in terms of getting identified, as you mentioned, as a high potential? Not always. And so that's like the first big myth is that like just putting your head down and doing great work is enough to build an internal brand. It's really not.
no.
And I think the second big myth is that like people are actually thinking about you. I mean, and your manager might be the greatest manager, and maybe they really are doing a lot of thinking about their direct reports. But the reality is, most managers have their own to do list that's like this long. And
Mhm.
so, if you're not a problem, that's great for them, but they're also not thinking that much about you. So, you need to be doing some of the thinking and putting it in front of their face. Like, look, hey, I project managed this really well. I did this. I led this effort. Like, I see my strengths really coming through in how I'm leading cross functional teams to make decisions and move the projects forward, or something like that. And then, as Michelle says, then when they're going into this performance management conversations where they're ranking talent or they're nine boxing and people are getting put in, they could be like, well, Joe is really leading projects well and is amazing at putting cross-functional teams together. And we're going to need to do that more with our AI strategy in 2026. So I think she's a high potential, right? I mean, it's really that you have to give them the story because they're not thinking enough about you to come up with a story for you.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Joe. Really being able to articulate your impact and the results that your impact made to the organization so that it's easy for the manager, even the management team that you are working with. They already know, right? Again, your name will be associated with it. So that's what we want to get to.
And you had a great point, Michelle, too, when we were talking earlier about how this is also helpful if you get recruited to be able to give the recruiter a really good sense of like who you are.
Yeah, we were yesterday. I was on a panel with some executive recruiters, and one of the things that she said that drives her nuts is when people come and tell her like, I could do all these five things. Well, which one are you really good at, right? The one that you're really good at is really the one that should be able to stick, and that's what you should really be leading in. You don't want to make yourself a pretzel, as especially if you're in the job hunt right now. What are you known for? What's your area of expertise? And to be able to articulate it. That's how people in your network who want to advocate for you and help you, that's how they're going to be able to do it if they are clearly know what you're after and what you're an expert at.
Love that, Michelle. So, um, so let's for all of these people who are listening right now and are thinking like, I'm not totally sure what I want to be known for, or I'm not sure what I am known for right now. Let's do a little bit about brand foundation. Sorry about that. You know, what do you want to be known for? Kick us off
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. So, especially if you are in more of a job search mode, and job search basically it could also be internally too. A lot of companies are still hiring and promoting from within. So, really coming with what are the skills that I consistently demonstrate and have a big impact for my business leader, but for the business unit that I'm in, for the overall company. Um, and when I say impact, right, what does that mean? It's all about as much as you can, if you can quantify it, right? How did you save time, money? Of course, if you're in a more sales oriented role, what kind of revenue did you bring? What kind of customer relationships did you cultivate that led to that revenue or led to that service, being renewed as another example. So, as much as possible, making it tangible for people is always the best. So, skills, impact, and what were the results, making it tangible. And then from that point of view, I think then it is easier, right, for people to really understand what your value proposition is. So those are kind of fundamentals from a HR recruiting standpoint. What about you, Joe? What do you see on the leadership side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is so important, whether, as Michelle says, you are putting yourself out there for new roles or whether you are just trying to build more of a brand internally, really thinking about what qualities do people appreciate about you too.
Mhm.
And it is not unheard of for me when I'm doing work with a executive client for them to tell me, which of course feels great for me, oh, the best thing you did was talk to other people about my 360. Like learning what other people thought about me was one of the most impactful things. And so I want everyone listening to this to know you don't have to be an executive with an executive coach to get this kind of feedback. This is something you can really do for yourself, and it's worthwhile doing. And if it's been a few years since you've done it, it's worthwhile redoing it because you've changed and probably others' impressions of you have changed. So I really recommend conducting your own sort of informal 360 feedback. Talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues,
Mhm.
ask your boss. If you're in a client facing role, maybe ask your clients or your customers. Ask your team, hey, I'm just trying to learn, what do you see as my strengths? And what do you see as like the next big growth opportunities for me? Like, where can I grow? This is often easier for people to answer than being like, what are my weaknesses? What do you not like about me? Especially when you're asking clients or customers, they might not want to give you that kind of information. But if you ask them, like, what's a growth opportunity? Like, how could we serve you better? How could I serve you better in this role? They usually have ideas about that. And now this amazing thing with AI, I mean, you know,
Mhm.
we can talk about AI for a million years, but just get that data from people and feed it into AI, and within like 30 seconds, AI will be able to tell you what your strengths are, what you're known for, what people appreciate about you, and what is next for your development, like where you want to work if you want to cultivate an even better brand or even more job security or job, knowledge to move forward.
Yeah, I love that, Joe. And I would just say on the AI front, you can also prompt it to say things like, where are these kind of roles available, right? Both internally or externally, what companies are growing, where that can be applied to. So
Yeah, that is such
something,
a hot tip. I love that. I'm going to steal that now, Michelle. Um,
yeah,
I'm going to tell my clients, take this 360, input it in, and ask ChatGPT where, or Claude, or whatever your favorite thing is. Like, where are these skills most useful? Like,
where are they
what
most useful?
industries, markets, job roles? I love that.
Yeah, because there are still, I know the market right now is a little crazy, but there's still very, industries like healthcare, like biotech, other organizations that are hiring where you can transfer skills depending on your role. So yeah, use those AI tools to help you, solidify and confirm, and also put in a nice summary, again, what you're known for, so
Yeah,
you can
I love
share it.
that. And listeners, if you need more help on how to use AI in your job transition, definitely hit up Michelle. She's a wealth of information about that, but that is a great hot tip to just like um, email people. And I'd say email more people than you think you need to, because not everyone responds, let's be honest. But
Yeah.
like, just say like, take 5 minutes and, answer these two questions and see what you find. I bet there's going to be a lot of knowledge for you and a lot of good feedback. Wow, I'm doing well. I'm known for the things I want to be known for. Or, ooh, people aren't seeing the things that I know that they appreciate in my workplace, in my industry. And that's something for me to work on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm excited. Let's dig into the first pillar, which is like, how do we build internal and external visibility? Michelle, what do you recommend first?
Yeah. So internally, in your organization, there's so many wonderful channels that you could, start getting to know, not getting to know, helping people get to know you, I should say. And they could be things like, posing questions on Slack. Many organizations use Slack, or a version of that, right? Some kind of instant,
Teams, yeah.
yeah, and messaging, and groups that you can belong to. And just posing questions, being present. The key there is being consistent, consistently showing up, is a great way to build visibility and for people to get to know who you are and what you're known for. Um, Several organizations have place groups, affinity groups, and things of that nature where you can come and be part of a panel, for example, right? If you're bringing in a certain subject matter expertise, that's another great way to build visibility and kind of show yourself outside of your day-to-day duties and responsibilities. So internally, there's a lot of great places, but that's where I would start, where it's, and I think Slack, or having, building community in those type of ways, is a kind of a safe place to, kind of dip your toe in, um,
Yeah.
and start
And
little
I
at
would
a
just, yeah, I would add to that too. If you have a project that's gone really well, like a lot of design firms will have case studies where they'll show off like what went really well. Like if you have something like that, find someone more senior in the organization to present with. Or if, your organization does shout outs, put your project that has been successful out there for a shout out, so that people are hearing about you, because that matters and they see you in that expert role, when you have this opportunity when you're positioned as an expert within the company for, like Michelle said, as an internal panel or any kind of case study or presentations, go for it. Don't wait for people to ask you.
yeah,
um, Put yourself out there.
yeah,
And
make that
you know
opportunity. Hmm.
and look for external visibility. I was just talking with a client yesterday. There's a big conference in their industry, and we were talking about how she could present, how she could do an abstract and, put herself out there so that she becomes known both within her organization, which is quite large, as well as within the industry, as, a knowledgeable figure there. So there are a lot of conferences, podcasts, panels, and they are always looking for experts like you. They want people from companies. They don't want talking heads like Michelle and I. Okay, sometimes they want us to, but like they really want people who are in the field, especially these industry specific conferences. People want to hear from others in the field about what works, what doesn't, and just seeing your name as the person presenting or the person being interviewed on the panel or podcast, that already gives you a level of visibility and expertise that is really hard to create on your own.
I love that, Joe. And I really love the project. I was talking to a client as well, about her moving into a different kind of level, and you just raising your hand and saying, "Hey, I have that skill. I want to learn more. Let me take the lead." Right? I love that. Don't wait for it to happen to you. You make it happen. And I think going back to what you were saying about managers being busy, like anything you can do to help them, right? They're going to
So
take you
true.
up on and they'll
Yeah,
expand.
I totally love that. And,
Mhm.
so here's a reflection question for you right now, which is where do you currently have the most visibility? Is it internal? Is it within your organization? Is it outside your organization? Um, and where do you want it to be? Like, depending on what you're going for, if you are just looking to get promoted within your organization and keep moving up, internal. That's really what you need to work on, which is not to say that having an external conference presentation or something doesn't help you internally. Because people in your org who go to the conference see this person from their organization who's representing them and hopefully doing a great job representing them. So these kinds of things can help, but knowing where you're focused is really helpful, especially as we move to sort of the next pillar, which is digital presence. And I know Michelle and I are both on LinkedIn. We both have thoughts about LinkedIn. Um, but Michelle, maybe you can start with some of your thoughts on LinkedIn from a job perspective, and then I'm happy to weigh in from sort of more of an internal leadership perspective.
Yeah, I love LinkedIn because it is that low cost, high impact platform, right? And it's a great place again to if you are starting from ground zero to start dipping in your toe. The key there is just consistency, right? You don't have to post a million times a day. In fact, I that's not what I recommend.
And
You
then you
can
look like you're not doing your job.
exactly. So, but being consistent and if it helps putting together a schedule, really thinking realistically, how many times a week can I go in for, and it could be a half an hour, maybe even less, 15 minutes to go in and see what people are doing. If something exciting, or maybe not overly exciting, maybe something that's coming up that you're involved in that you want to share, post it on there, right? So volume is less important than consistency and having some type of schedule where you'll be able to adhere to it, so that people kind of get accustomed to knowing that, hey, Michelle posts, these couple days a week, right? So the other piece of it as well is, I have clients who are like, oh, I post on LinkedIn, but nothing happens. Well, you have to give to get, is what I say. So it's not just also sharing what you're doing, but going to see what Joe is doing, right? And all the exciting events and all the exciting stories that she tells about her clients and the teams she's working with, right? So you want to go in there and just see what your network is doing. Expand your network by joining a few key groups if you can, or following people that you find interesting and commenting on their posts. And over time, right? It's something that it's over time builds
Yeah,
that
I
way.
love that. Um, just especially just this idea that like people notice you more when you post on their thing. I mean, let's
Mhm.
be honest. You are not the only one who puts stuff up on LinkedIn and no one responds to it. So when someone responds to it, you remember that. So think about that. Like maybe you have a watch list. Maybe there's like the CEO of your company. There's like the SVP in your organization, or there's a client that you're trying to reach who hasn't been willing to give you the time of day. If they're posting on LinkedIn and you're responding, you are way more likely to get their attention when you reach out. Um, Earlier in my career, before I was an executive coach, I was working in this company and we had sort of a competitor that we were trying to build bridges with. And I had reached out a couple of times, nothing. But then, this was back in the early days of Twitter. And I got on Twitter and they were very active on Twitter and I started responding and retweeting them and everything. Well, sure enough, the next conference we were at, they came up to me and they were really interested in meeting and, talking with me. And that would never have happened without the social media engagement first. So think of the social media engagement as a way to open the door and get yourself some of the visibility that you might not be able to get in more traditional ways.
Absolutely. And again, it's a way to start building your brand in that you can start kind of showing people what you're all about, right? In a, again, very low commitment way that has, again, that positive impact by connecting
And
with others.
you had a great tip about the headline too. So please share.
Yeah. So, the key piece around headlines is that you want to have a format where it shows your current title and then your impact or focus, right? So, um, for example, it could be a VP of SaaS B2B, and then the V bar driving growth and innovation. So again, it kind of starts telling people what it is that beyond your title, what it is that you're known for, what you do, what your um, yeah, where you want to be, right, and grow in your career. So I I highly recommend if you haven't done so already. Again, new year. What's your intention? Where you want to go, and update your headline. Your not headline, their LinkedIn headline if you haven't done that already, and if it's been a little bit, if it's been a couple of years. Chances are, if you're not in LinkedIn very often, it's probably old. So you want to keep it freshened up. Doesn't have to be overly fancy or word. In fact, I would say keep it simple. Don't make it too wordy, but do audit that headline and make sure that it reflects what it is that you're doing now and want to be doing more of in the future.
I love that tip. I feel like I should go back and audit my headline since I actually have no idea what it is. So, Michelle, maybe you will hold me accountable to that after this. And if you're watching, maybe in the next week or so, I will change my LinkedIn headline with Michelle's great advice. But I love
Of,
that. You know, we're
of
changing constantly. Why not update our headlines to reflect that?
Yeah, I know as I've kind of pivoted my business over time, I think it's just really key to do that. Ideally, a couple times a year, even because sometimes that especially if you've changed jobs or if you are pivoting career paths, I think it is important to reflect what you want to be known for. Because many people, LinkedIn is the first place they go to when they start researching people they want to work with.
Awesome. I love that. I'm going to post this question again because it's so good. And I'm going to let you kick us off on pillar three and networking.
Yeah, so networking is, I think, the most one of the most important pillars as you think about creating your brand and kind of making connections, right? And what was interesting as I've been reflecting on going back to AI, right? A lot of people are using AI in the job search, both as a job seeker and then, of course, on the employer side. So a way to kind of not necessarily circumvent it, but help improve your odds of getting to the right person is through your network, right? And Joe and I were chatting about the fact that there was a LinkedIn survey a few years back that said 70% of directors and above found their roles through some type of referral. And why is that important? Because companies incentivize their employees to bring in referrals. They tend to be a lot of times kind of better fits for the organization. So referral. I talked about that yesterday too on my panel. That's just a great way to 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 have the connection that you need to get to where you want to go next. And I would say that even internally, as you're thinking about getting promoted and things of that nature, again, networking internally with the
Yes.
people, again, going back to performance review time, your boss is probably going to get feedback from all your stakeholders, right? And so networking can also be internal by making the right connections and keeping you top of mind as they think about the results that their organizations got and how you may have played a piece into it. So it goes both ways, internal.
Yeah.
External.
Yes, I love that. And, sort of picking up on our core question again, what do you want to be known for? Like, you want people internally to like know you for that so that when they are there's a new role coming up, or there is something going on. They're like, oh, well, Joe is that project management extraordinaire. I want you to know, by the way, this is a lie. I am not, but we used it in the beginning, so I kept going with it. Um, and so, like, so you want your brand so available to others that they can use it when they're thinking of roles. Just like your LinkedIn headline might be available to recruiters and others who see you, internally building that brand so that when new roles come up, they think of you. I wanted to build one more on your networking piece because it's something I tell people a lot, including my own 23-year-old son who still hasn't taken me up on it. But the advantage of being in a company is you can email almost any other person in that company and
Mhm.
ask them to have coffee or a Zoom chat with you. And yeah, they might take a little bit to get back to you. I won't lie. Especially the more senior they go, the longer it'll take before you hear back from them. But most people are going to respond 10 times faster to someone within their company who asks them for a little bit of their time than these random people on LinkedIn who are hitting them up. Can I pick your brain? Can I learn about this? I just got something like that a text today. I'm interested in coaching. Can I take you out to coffee? Oh, okay. But you know what I mean? But if it were
That's
someone
true.
internally, so much more likely to get a response. So you have this amazing network at your disposal. If you're at a company, please use it before you leave and build those connections.
Yeah, it's such a great point, Joe. Um, yeah, think about what's the my word of the year is ease. So what's
I
the
love
easiest
that.
path of least resistance, right? Like you said, the person that already has that connection because you're already working in the same environment. I love that. And I also love that you start building your network before you really need it, right? That's also really, really key. Because networking is about building relationships. Relationships don't happen one time. It's something that takes, you know, time to make those connections and for people to know, like, and trust you, right?
Totally. And Michelle says I'm the data person, but she actually came up with this other piece of great data. So I'm going to throw it up here. But because it doesn't stop, it's not like you just need your network to get that first job. And once you're in, we go back to the myth that you'll be rewarded. No, even when you're at the top of your field, 85% of those executive placements are coming from networking. So the
Yeah.
network you're building now, it's going to benefit you for your whole life. So take some time, put the reps in now. It's what's that Japanese thing? When was the best time to build a tree 20 years ago? Like the best time to build your network 20 years ago. What's the second best time? Today. So you're listening to this, it's January. Make 2026 the year where you're really building and strengthening your network.
So true. I would say for executives, it's even more critical that you really build on that network and rely on it, especially if you're pivoting or you want a different type of role, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are short and sweet and we're moving into wrap up. So Michelle had a couple of takeaway exercises. Um, yeah,
Yeah. So I think before I talk about my takeaway exercise, one other question that I think is really important to think about, just to kind of wrap up networking, is, who is maybe one person you want to reconnect with that you haven't talked to in a while, right? So we've talked a lot about like reaching out to new people, but who is already in your network, but you just haven't spoken to them in a bit, and maybe they've moved on somewhere else and you're now curious to see how they're doing, right? Again, that's how you keep those connections warm over time. So
love
anyway,
that.
I just wanted to share that before we moved into some key takeaways. So one thing is to really identify three things that you want to be known for, right? Make this the year. And Joe did a great job of sharing how if you don't know where to start asking people, right? That could also be another way for you to reconnect, right? Um, have that be kind of a two-way street. Ask them for feedback. Give feedback to them as well if they're open to it. And then see how you want to apply what you want to be known for internally. Can you be involved in groups or panels? Or as Joe mentioned, I love the idea of, if you recently wrapped up a project, a case study, a white paper, what can you be involved in that will give you that internal visibility and possibly even external, right? That maybe you can then, if it is a case study or a white paper, that then you can go to an industry group and talk about it as a subject matter expert. I think that's also another great way to get your brand out there. So those would be kind of some ideas for next
I
steps.
love those, Michelle. And what I love about Michelle, and you can see this in her, as a leader, as a coach, as an HR consultant, is she is always putting things into action, like trying to get, she's having you guys think the whole time, like, what can you do now? What can you do this week? Who can you connect with this month? And,
Mhm.
she had this final question. So I'm going to throw it up on the screen. I gotta stop saying throw up. Oh, I gotta work on that. Anyway, moving on. But like Michelle's great question is like, where can you show up with more intention this week? And like, please ask yourself that, and then ask yourself it next week, and then next week, and next week. And I swear by the end of 2026, you will have been so much further in building your brand when you're showing up intentionally at least once a week somewhere. And Michelle's given you great ideas. You can show up intentionally on Slack networks, on Teams. You can show up intentionally by giving proposal, giving, being on panels, giving proposals at conferences. And you can show up on LinkedIn intentionally
Yeah.
too. You can change your tagline, which I'll be doing.
That's an easy,
Um,
easy, easy one for you to do. Start
That is an
there. Start.
easy one for me to do this week. And then,
Yep.
show up intentionally with your network. That
Mhm.
give to get is really great. There's so much wisdom here, Michelle. Thank you so much for,
Thank you, Joe, for
collaborating with
inviting me today.
doing this with me is so great. And I know everyone listening, this is like frantically taking notes because there are just so many gems that you dropped here.
Well, thank you, Joe, for inviting me. And it's always a pleasure to connect with you. And thank you so much, everyone, for giving us the time to share with you just a couple tips on how to not only better understand what intention you want to bring this year, but also be able to share that with everyone out there. So
Awesome. Well, I'm Joe Ilfeld, Insight to Leadership. And then Michelle, here's how you can connect with her. Thank you again, Michelle. This has been amazing.
thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great day. Bye.